I want to be clear about what the court did not do today, notwithstanding that I have strong disagreements with what the court did. And I note it did not, it chose not to address the issue of universal injunctions for the duration of the time that they were granting them for Biden administration appointee orders, and chose on the first order that got up during the Trump administration to use this opportunity to issue this decision. Putting that aside, I want to be clear about what the court did not do today. The court very clearly did not address the merits of birthright citizenship. And they, in fact, stayed the executive order for another 30 days for everyone. So let's be clear. Birthright citizenship remains the law of the land in states like New Jersey and in every state across the country. It also said very clearly that it leaves open to the district court whether or not nationwide injunction is necessary to give states complete relief, something that we argued as a coalition at every level, including at the United States Supreme Court, where we said very clearly that in order for states to receive the protections we need from the harms inflicted by this order, we need nationwide relief. Because if you think about very obviously, people born in states that are not part of our coalition might move into our state, and the federal government has not shown in any way how we could possibly administer a system of citizenship and the benefits that flow from it without having one standard of citizenship under birthright citizenship in every state. We are very confident that we have met that standard. We are confident we will meet it when we go back to the district court, and we are grateful that the Supreme Court left open our rights to seek that relief as this case goes forward. But make no mistake, birthright citizenship is in our United States Constitution for a reason. We fought a civil war to address whether babies born on United States soil are in fact citizens of this country. For a century and a half, this has not been in dispute. And we are confident that as we litigate this case, that fact will remain, and we will never stop fighting for people's rights in our states and in states across the country when it comes to the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. So I thank you all for being here. It's now my honor to turn the mic over to Attorney General Nick Brown from the state of Washington.
Thank you, A.G. Plotkin, and good morning, everyone. Honored to be joined with my colleagues today. I will echo what my colleague from New Jersey just highlighted, that on the one hand, this is an incredibly disappointing result. I think the Supreme Court had the opportunity to provide clarity for the entire nation to reaffirm what has been the law of this land for over 150 years and missed that opportunity with this order this morning. But what the court did not do was negate any of the substantive arguments that the states made in bringing challenges to this blatantly unconstitutional executive order. The court did not address the 4 district court decisions, each of which independently found that this was an unconstitutional order. And we remain confident that we will prevail as we continue to litigate these issues forward. But this is a disappointing result. And I am really struck by some of the language highlighted by Justice Sotomayor in her dissent, noting how fragile the rule of law is in America today and how the court made it even more tenuous in this moment. But we will not give up. We will continue to fight. It takes actors willing to challenge abuses from the highest levels of the land. And that is what we're seeing from this president of the United States, where time and time again, he is undermining the rule of law, undermining state sovereignty, undermining the separation of powers. And it is incumbent upon all of us to not capitulate in this moment, to not accept these changes that we're seeing from the president and the rest of the administration, and continue to use every tool that we have available to challenge these unconstitutional orders. But I am confident as we move forward that the court will see what all of the other courts have seen, that we cannot accept a blatant changing of our Constitution with the stroke of an executive order. That is not the way this works, and we will continue to defend the rights and liberties of everyone in the United States because we need to stand up in this moment. But it requires a lot of collaboration and I'm so happy to be joined this morning by all of my colleagues, and I will turn to my colleague from Massachusetts, Andrea Campbell. Thank you.
Thank you, A.G. Brown. I, too, am grateful for the partnership and collaboration of my colleagues on the screen and those who couldn't join us today for their leadership on this issue. Because what we all know to be true is that birthright citizenship is a constitutional right enshrined in the 14th Amendment. And for more than a century, the 14th Amendment has defined birthright citizenship as a right, not a privilege, that belongs to every child born on American soil, no matter the parent's immigration status or what state they were born in. Millions of Americans can trace their citizenship back to immigrant ancestors who helped build this country, fuel our economy under the protections of the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment is just as strong today as it was when it was enacted more than 150 years ago. And it states clearly that the president's executive order is unconstitutional. That executive order is not in effect today, even after the Supreme Court decision, which is disappointing to all of us. And we have every expectation that we will absolutely be successful in keeping the 14th Amendment as the law of the land, and of course, birthright citizenship as well. We are deeply disappointed that the court did not decide today that a nationwide injunction is warranted, so that no matter where in the United States a baby is born, that baby will continue to be a citizen. Instead, the court asked the plaintiff states to demonstrate the need for a nationwide injunction in the district court. We have already done that, and we look forward to doing that again. Citizenship does not depend on whether a baby is born in New Hampshire or in Massachusetts. People move, they live along state borders, they're born in hospitals outside the state they live in. A baby's citizenship should not, cannot, and must not be determined by the borders of the state they find themselves in at the time of birth. And that's why the district court initially granted nationwide relief, because they understood that to be true. But let's focus on the bottom line. While we're absolutely disappointed that the Supreme Court did not take up the issues that really needed to be taken up and discussed, we are in court to strike down this sham of an executive order and to protect more than 150,000 babies born in the United States every year, whom the president has attempted to strip away their citizenship. We intend to be successful, and today's decision is now just another procedural hurdle that we will have to overcome. And we also have to remind folks that this is a democracy, and we all learned in elementary school that if you want to amend the Constitution, there is a well-established process to do that. It requires, at a minimum, Congress and the approval of 38 states. And the president cannot change the 14th Amendment or the Constitution on his own with the simple strike of a pen. So while we remain disappointed, we take that disappointment forward, and the work continues to win this case and to defend the rights of every child born in this country and to uphold our history and our Constitution. And I'm confident that in these tasks, we will absolutely succeed. Thank you again to my colleagues, and I'm proud to turn it over now to Connecticut Attorney General William Tong. You have to unmute, I think, AG Tong.
Okay, thank you. It's only been several years with the muting and unmuting, but I'll get it at some point. I think I'm supposed to turn it to General Bonta actually before he turns it to me. So let me go to California from Connecticut.
My apologies, AG Bonta. Proud to work with you too.
You're very, very kind, both of you. I appreciate the opportunity, and grateful always to be with you, to work with you, to fight with you for the rule of law, to defend our Constitution. And thank you, AG Tong. Thank you, AG Campbell. And thank you to everyone who's joining us virtually today. Today's Supreme Court decision is definitely a mixed bag with some disappointing components, but also some signs of hope. And first and foremost, birthright citizenship stands for now. And the Supreme Court recognized that our injunction may be justified if its nationwide scope is necessary to afford the states complete relief. And it's now up to the lower courts to reconsider if the nationwide injunction is appropriate and necessary to provide complete relief to the states whose AGs sued to challenge this order. We believe that we will prevail and that we've made the case already. And when the lower courts, under the instruction of the U.S. Supreme Court, do that review, we will secure a nationwide injunction to provide relief to the plaintiff states. I'm hopeful that the court will see that a patchwork of state injunctions where birthright citizenship stands for some states but not others would inevitably create administrative chaos, sparking widespread confusion and spurring questions we don't have the answers to. The rights guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution, they belong to everyone in this country, not just those whose state attorneys general have the courage to stand up to this president's anti-democratic agenda. The Supreme Court's decision today is not what we hoped for, but you can be sure the fight is far from over. The court didn't decide our birthright case today. Our case is continuing to make its way through the legal system and will continue to show up every step of the way to fight for the rights of all Americans born in this country, regardless of where their parents are from. We believe our case is clear because the law is clear. The 14th Amendment of the Constitution and the Immigration and Nationality Act are clear. Birthright citizenship is foundational to our history and has already been upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court. One such case centered around a San Francisco-born Chinese-American man named Wong Kim Ark, who successfully sued the U.S. when he was denied entry back into his own country after visiting family in China. Officials wrongly claimed he wasn't a citizen. In 1898, the Supreme Court affirmed that children born to immigrants in the U.S. like Ark couldn't be denied citizenship. As our case continues, you can be sure that my colleagues and I will be here every step of the way, fighting to uphold and protect the constitutional right to birthright citizenship. I'll be here fighting to safeguard the tens of thousands of babies born in California each year who should rightfully be citizens. We're a nation of immigrants. It's our legacy and it's our identity, especially here in California, home to more immigrants than any other state, including my own mom who immigrated from the Philippines. Our diversity is both our story and it's our strength. I'll always defend it. I'll always stand up for all of our diverse communities who make California and America great. I'll always hold those who break the law and violate the Constitution accountable, including the president. And before I close, I want to again acknowledge the great work done on this case by our respective teams, the AGs on this press conference call, as well as our staffs and our colleagues from around the country. We couldn't do this work without our great teams. And at the California DOJ, that includes Irina Trasovan, Marissa Malouf, Christopher Hu, Denise Levy, Delbert Tran, Lorraine Lopez, and Annabelle Wilmot. I want to say your names and recognize you and thank you for the incredible work that you do. You are incredible, dedicated public servants, each and every one of you. I'm proud to stand by your side and be on your team. With that, please allow me to turn it over to my friend and colleague from the great state of Connecticut, A.G. Tong.
Thank you, General Bonta. And let me thank my colleagues. Let me thank New Jersey, Washington State, Massachusetts, California, all of their staffs, all the states in our coalition. I don't think there is a group of people, Americans, who are fighting harder as a group, as a coalition, than we are to protect the American people and to be a firewall for our states and for every state and everyone in this country. As General Platkin said, the 14th Amendment is strong, alive, and well, and birthright citizenship remains at this moment the law of the land. It's the law of the land because we acted, but it's also the law of the land because the 14th Amendment means what it says. If you're born on American soil, you're an American, period. And the Supreme Court affirmed that principle more than 100 years ago in San Francisco in the case of Wong Kim Ark. I'm here this morning not just because I'm an attorney general and I represent the great state of Connecticut, but because I too am Wong Kim Ark. There are millions of Americans who share Wong Kim Ark's story. There are millions, thousands of American babies who are being born, about to be born, were just born, who are also Wong Kim Ark. There are so many of us that share and embody the truth of Wong Kim Ark and his story, that the 14th Amendment confers citizenship on us, that we don't derive our citizenship from our parents. We derive our citizenship by operation of the 14th Amendment and the Bill of Rights and the United States Constitution. This is the most solemn, sacred guarantee covenant that this country makes to the people that live here, to Americans, to people born here in American soil, and that's what we're fighting for. I also want to just put in perspective what this means. We've talked a lot about the rule of law. We've talked about the constitutional crisis that we're in. We've talked about the 14th Amendment and how the Constitution works. But at the end of the day, this is about real people. It's about families. It's about children. It's about babies. And I want to take you back 52 years ago, when I was born in Hartford, Connecticut. I became the first American citizen in my immediate family by right of my birth in Hartford Hospital on American soil. So let's fast forward to 2025. What if William Tong or Wong Kim Ark or any of the millions of Americans like us were born now, today, or 30 days from now, when this court order takes effect? What would that mean for us? Well, right now in Connecticut and in the sister states that were part of this coalition, frankly, in every state right now, it means I'm an American citizen. If I'm born a minute from now in Connecticut and anywhere in this country, I'm an American citizen. But there is already considerable uncertainty because the court said, well, in 30 days, we'll be in a different place. And it's not clear what will happen after those 30 days in states like Texas, Louisiana, Pennsylvania, who weren't part of our case. So even if there's a family here in Connecticut and a baby is born a minute from now, and that baby is an American citizen in Connecticut, how will they be regarded in other states? And let's fast forward to 30 days from now. We're going to go into court and we're going to fight hard. And I believe within the next 30 days, we're going to get more clarity and we're going to prevail. But in 30 days, if that's not the case and we still have uncertainty, if I'm born in Connecticut, yes, the injunction still applies to me. Birthright citizenship is still the law of the land in Connecticut. But what about in Pennsylvania? What about in Texas? What if a pregnant woman in Connecticut goes to Texas, goes to Pennsylvania, goes to Louisiana, goes to Utah, and has the baby there? Then what happens? As General Campbell said, what if they're right over the border? What if they live on the border? What if they live in another jurisdiction close to where they live? They go over there to go to work. They go over there to visit family. They go over the border to go to school. And they need to go to hospital and have the baby right there and then before they can go back to their home state. And ultimately, what does this mean for families in the decisions that they make every single day? You know, my parents knew when I was born that I was an American citizen. They had that certainty. It was clear to them, period, full stop. And because of that, they knew they could make all the investments that they made in me and later my sisters, that they could put everything, their heart and soul, into us as Americans growing up here in Connecticut. You know, would my parents have opened another restaurant? Would they have bought a house? Would they have hired more workers? Would they have signed a lease? Would they have invested all the resources they've invested in my education and my sister's education? Would they have made all of those choices without the certainty of my citizenship? That's what this means for American families, not just in our states, but in every state. They need that certainty that the 14th Amendment guarantees so that they can build a life for themselves in this country and for their children and do what my family and Rob's family and so many immigrant families have done for generations. Built this country into the most just, most powerful, most economically prosperous, most free country on earth. That's what we're fighting for. And that's where we're going to continue in this fight. And that's where we're going to win. Thank you. Let me turn it back to General Plotkin.
Thank you, General Tong. Thanks. I'll turn it over for questions in just 1 second. I just want to make two quick concluding points. First, I want to thank all of the AGs on this call, their teams, and the AGs across the country who have stood up. I also want to give a particular thanks to our Solicitor General, Jeremy Feigenbaum, who argued the case, as well as our whole team in our office who have worked on this for a very long time, which gets to my second point. One thing the Supreme Court said quite clearly today is state attorneys general have never been more important. We are, in fact, the only parties that they kicked the case back to the district court because they felt our relief could not be granted potentially without nationwide relief, which we will show. But it means the work that we're doing is all the more important. And I'd highlight that this case that we all filed was filed the very next morning after this unconstitutional order was signed. We were prepared. We knew this would be a fight, but it's a fight worth having. and I'm proud to be a part of this coalition. And I assure you, as I know I speak for the entire AG coalition in this case, we will not stop fighting for the people in our states and the people of this country. I'm now happy to open the floor to some questions.
You. We'll turn to the Q&A now. Reporters, some have already clicked the raise hand button on the screen, and then we'll call on you and unmute you. We'd ask that you keep the questions concise and on topic. We'll go a few minutes past 12, and we'll see how many we get to. If we don't get to your question, please follow up with the individual Attorney General office that you're interested in. So first we'll call on Zach Blackburn at New Jersey Globe.
Hi, my question's for Attorney General Platkin. I understand that the door is still open for nationwide injunctions under complete relief, and that'll come in future proceedings. But can you talk about your understanding of how this ruling changes the threshold needed to justify a nationwide injunction, as well as what new limits have been placed on injunctions, how they can be implemented, and how that relates to this case? Thank you.
Well, look, for states, it's consistent with what we've argued all along, which is that in order to remedy the harms this order would impose on us, we need nationwide relief. Because, and Zach, you're here in New Jersey. Take Philadelphia. People born there very often live in New Jersey or shortly thereafter move to New Jersey. The federal government has made no attempt to show how we could possibly administer a system of citizenship where states and benefits and rights flow from whether or not somebody moves into a state, who their attorney general was at the time of birth, what happens if they move in and move out. There's all kinds of administration challenges, which is why we need nationwide relief and one standard of citizenship, which again, we have had since the Civil War. So we're not exactly asking for, something insane here. And I'm confident that as it goes back to the district court, as we have shown at the district court, at the circuit court, at the United States Supreme Court, we will prevail on that front.
From John Stang.
Hi, I've got two questions. First, what do you think, what is the expected timetable for the entire Fourth Amendment issue to actually reach the Supreme Court? Is this 1 or 2 years down the road or 6 months down the road? And then the second question is specifically for AG Brown, very parochial. I just want to confirm that the injunction against Trump's executive order is still in place for Washington State.
So happy to take this question, John. First and foremost, none of us can predict the timing of the Supreme Court. It is never wholly consistent, so we'll just take one step at a time. As AG Platkin and others have noted, the order stayed for 30 days. The Supreme Court directed this to return to the lower courts. It's not necessarily a given, actually, that it'll go to the district court, but they could have done that in the first instance, but did not. But we can't really predict the timing. But yes, the injunction is in place now for Washington and the other states, and we'll just take one step at a time as we move forward. The other thing that I would just note is, there's good language in Justice Sotomayor's defense talking about and noting the fact that every single district court that has looked at this issue specifically determined that there was a need for a nationwide injunction. And, we expect that pattern to continue as we move forward. And as AG Platkin highlighted, it's really, really difficult to imagine that the Department of Justice and the administration can justify and explain how this would be administered on a state-by-state basis. It's practically impossible to do that, and we feel confident that each district court will continue to affirm that.
Thank you. NBC Boston, Oscar Margon.
Hi there. Thank you so much. This is a question for everybody, of course, but because we're in Boston, more specifically for AG Campbell. And you guys have already sort of answered this in a way, but if you could just clarify what the next step will be with regards to this suit. Does it mean you have to refile it with the lower courts? And then what happens in the meantime with the birthright citizenship in all of these states. And I think that question was already answered, saying, tell me if I'm wrong, that the injunction prevails here. And so there's no change with that, correct?
That is correct. The executive order will not go in effect here in Massachusetts, and we will return to court to revisit, frankly, and urge Judge Sorokin, who drafted an incredible decision with respect to this case, to enter an injunction with the same scope as the previous order that he entered. And I think, AG Brown, AG Placken, and others have said it. Every single court that has weighed in on this issue has said not only is birthright citizenship the law of the land, but made it crystal clear that nationwide relief and a nationwide injunction is absolutely necessary in order to make sure that actually happens in actuality for families and, of course, for parents and others, and to make sure that clarity is made and to ensure that clarity exists as well. So, of course, while the order may not be in effect in Massachusetts and will not go in effect in Massachusetts in 30 days, we want to also continue to join colleagues all across this country to ensure that it never goes into effect anywhere.
If I can just note also, one of the reasons I hesitate to get in the minds of the Supreme Court, but one of the reasons why they had to send it back to district court is because at the district court level, when we were first there before Judge Sorokin, the federal government didn't even try to say what alternatives could exist that would allow states to administer this. So in order for them to assess whether we need nationwide relief, which we do, which we've argued, the federal government has to show what alternatives exist, and we'll be able to show very clearly that those will not work in order to provide us the relief that we're entitled to.
Question from Oriana Gonzalez at Notice.
Hi, thank you so much. I guess, you mentioned at the beginning that collaboration, is key when we're talking about Democratic AGs and how they challenge Trump and his executive orders. But it's not like we see, all, I believe, 24 Democratic AGs joining one lawsuit at once. So with what we're seeing with nationwide injunctions today, does this raise the pressure for all Democratic attorneys general to become involved in each lawsuit that is challenging Trump's executive orders and his policies?
Look, I think you've seen over the past 5+ months incredible coordination and collaboration among states. States sometimes have individual circumstances that assess particular cases. I think the better question we should be asking is the states that haven't joined any of the suits, why they don't think babies born in their state are entitled to the protections of the 14th Amendment, why they don't think that universities in their state should be able to administer cancer and Alzheimer's trials, why they don't think people on Medicaid in their state should get the health care they're legally entitled to, why they don't think law enforcement in their state shouldn't be unceremoniously fired. All of those things have been addressed by our suits, and yet there are some states that haven't joined a single one of them. So I'm proud of the coalition we have, but I think that question really should be directed at states that are, I think, going to be on the hot seat now after today's opinion.
And I'll just add, go ahead, AG Bonta. I'll just quickly add to Matt's point. I'm really proud to be a part of this AG and, of course, Democratic AG coalition that is doing the work every single day to protect our rights and, most importantly, the rule of law. And we can't take our sight off of that. Regardless of how you feel about the 14th Amendment, I tell folks, pick the amendment you like, the first, the second, whatever it is. And if we allow the president to use an executive order to dismantle the 14th Amendment, he can then do that with respect to any other amendment, all of which we have been saying from the very beginning is unconstitutional and that he does not have the authority and the power to do that via an executive order. And so the question does remain, why are Republican AGs, to be explicit, not a part of these lawsuits that are blatantly violating the Constitution and blatantly outside of the authority that the president has?
I do want to just double click on your point about collaboration. It's been critical. It's important. It remains so. This group here, I couldn't be more proud to serve with and to have been working with for over a year now to prepare for these lawsuits in this moment. And our role is as important as ever. And in many of our cases, all of our cases, each state makes a decision that's best for their state. That will continue, whether they join the suit or not. And in this case, every single Democratic AG is participating across the two lawsuits that we've brought. But the point that AG Platkin makes around and I'll just be clear about who they are, because this is factually accurate, that the red state AGs are not fighting for the rights of their people. They're not protecting the funding that's being unlawfully and unconstitutionally withheld by the federal government that should go to their states. And I honestly have thought that during the course of our lawsuits, they have been secretly very happy that we're suing, because they have been coasting, drafting behind our work and benefiting from it without having to do the work. That is potentially no longer the case in some instances, depending on what is an appropriate injunction for the plaintiff states. So I believe they've always had important questions that they need to answer from their constituents about why they're letting their constituents' rights be trampled on, why they're letting the critical, essential funding for healthcare and education and NIH funding and other critical services get withheld unlawfully by the president and just laying down and doing nothing. And those questions from their constituents are only going to get louder now.
We're going to try to squeeze in one or two more. We're a little bit past our expected time here, but maybe Zoe Tillman of Bloomberg News.
This, and this is for any of the attorneys general. First, can you address whether you see this as putting any existing injunctions with nationwide scope in other cases in jeopardy? So any kind of retroactive concerns about cases where you've prevailed, or just generally, do you see this as having backward-looking consequences? And then looking forward to, future litigation, how do you see this as changing the strategy or what you need to show to get nationwide relief now?
Look, I think as states, we've always said nationwide relief should be limited, or should be in limited circumstances. We argued that at the Supreme Court. And again, the court said very clearly that when states can show they need nationwide relief in order to remedy harms to those states, then nationwide relief is appropriate. So we will certainly assess the impact on any case. But as I sit here now, I think as it relates to states, the court confirmed what we've thought all along. Nationwide relief should be limited, but it is available to states when appropriate.
I would just add, AG Platkin, I think collectively as a group of Democratic attorney generals, we've filed well over 30 cases against the Trump administration, protecting civil rights, protecting constitutional rights, protecting funding to each of our states. But it's only been a small handful where we've asked and received nationwide injunctions. And importantly, in some of the funding cases that my colleagues have talked about, in each of those cases, the relief has generally been limited to those states that are participating in those cases. And so there might be an attempt to expand this retroactively, but given the way that we've proceeded collectively, I don't really anticipate that being a significant issue.
Let me add, it's obvious what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And we've talked about the failure of some of our sister states to act to protect their residents. But our sister states have stepped up, who are not in this case, and have filed many cases over the years, seeking nationwide relief and seeking nationwide injunctions. And going forward, they're gonna encounter some tough sledding in certain circumstances. If the president acts in many of cases that we abhor, frankly, and have opposed, there are principles that are established in those cases that now apply. So if the president acts on a major question, for example, and seeks to overturn federal law and years of practice to protect our environment, on a major question, the major questions doctrine will apply, and we will hold their feet to the fire. Dobbs, there's no decision, frankly, that I abhor more than Dobbs, but that stands for the proposition that our states are sovereign, and that we can act within our sovereign authority in the best interest of people in our states. Our colleagues call it states' rights. Whatever it's called, it confirmed the right of states to act on behalf of people in our states and protect our way of life. So yeah, new laws being made, and I think it's a mixed bag, but for sure it'll have an impact on litigation going forward. And it doesn't necessarily help our colleagues in our sister states who aren't part of this coalition.
We'll take a question from David Gutman from Seattle Times.
Yeah, hello, thank you. My question is for AG Brown, and it's just kind of clarifying the consequences of this morning's decision. Absent further orders from lower courts or absent further court orders, is in 30 days, will a child born next door in Idaho to undocumented parents under this decision, are they not a US citizen? Is that your understanding?
What I would say is that their rights are tenuous. And, it's a 116-page decision, I believe. So we're still analyzing the full scope of the order and analyzing the dissents as well. But if you are living in a state that did not participate in this coalition of action against the Trump administration, then your rights are in question. And I think that is explicitly clear. The administration still has to go through the steps of, coming up with the system that they were stayed from creating and beginning to administer, to establish the procedures by which they would start to strip away birthright citizenship as an inherent right. But in Washington and New Jersey and Massachusetts, Connecticut, your rights are much more strong. But in all those other states, including many of our neighbor states, not participating in this case is going to have consequences for the children born in those states.
Wrap up with this one final question. Sophie Nieto Munoz of New Jersey Monitor.
Hi, my question's for Attorney General Plotkin. What kind of confusion and chaos do you think that this could bring among immigrant families or mixed status families because this decision is so unclear? Like, what kind of immediate impact should these families know about or be worried about?
Well, I think the immediate message to every family in America should be that birthright citizenship is in effect everywhere. The Supreme Court said that very clearly for the next 30 days, which, by the way, is the same period of time that was in the initial order when we sued the next day. In fact, I've just been told that one of the groups of private plaintiffs have already filed a class action suit, and I suspect more will come. So I would say to everybody in America who's concerned right now, look, you have right to be concerned. The President of the United States is attacking a fundamental right in a way that has never happened in the 157-year history of this amendment. But you have people fighting for you, the folks on this call, the folks that are fighting across the country. And we're not going to stop fighting because we're right. Birthright citizenship is part of the fabric of this nation. We're going to win on that. The Supreme Court very clearly did not say otherwise today. And ultimately, when this is resolved, their rights will be vindicated.
Thank all the attorneys general for being so gracious with their time today. All the reporters, sorry we didn't get to all of you. You can follow up with the individual AG's offices if you have any additional questions. But I think we'll wrap for today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
When your question is actually a bunch of questions.
When's the best time this weekend to host a backyard barbecue? And what's something impressive I can grill that I don't have to stand right next to the whole time?
Just ask Google.
things, and he's done some terrible things, grossly incompetent. Nobody knew it was him, because I don't think it was him. I think it was whoever was controlling the auto pen. But our country is doing great. And those leaders and other leaders, I just left, as you know, a large group of the most highly respected people. And that includes big countries. When you look at Germany and France and Spain, although Spain didn't come through, but they will. By the way, guaranteed they will. That was the only country that sort of tried to hold back on putting up the money. But just so you know, they said, it's unbelievable what's happened to the USA. You were a dead country. We didn't respect the country, the leader. You were dead as a doornail. One said to me, you went from being a dead country, you are right now the hottest country anywhere in the world. The whole world is talking about the USA, and everybody wants a part of it, and they're pouring into our country, and you're going to see those numbers. Thank you for that question. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question about trade. Secretary Bessent has said that he hopes tariff deals with major partners will be done by Labor Day. So if some deals are not done by your July 9th deadline, will some countries' tariffs go back up, or will they stay where they are now?
Well, there are some countries that are used to ripping us off, to be honest with you. And I don't want to name them, but you sort of can name them. And they're so used to just, taking it billions and billions of, look, we had a trade deficit of more than $1 trillion. Think of a trillion, a trade deficit. That's because nobody cared. We cared a lot when, I took in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariff. We had the greatest economy in history up until now. I think we're going to blow it away. But during my time, and especially prior to COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. I think we're going to blow it away now based on the kind of numbers that we're seeing. But some countries are very angry because they've been ripping us off for years. They've been making billions and billions of dollars. There was nobody to negotiate with. They could do whatever they want. They charged us tariffs, by the way, at numbers that we've never seen before. And we ended up losing much more than $1 trillion a year. $1 trillion a year on trade. And now they're being met with a force that's far greater than them, and they don't like it. So they're upset because instead of making, $5 billion, they're going to break even. Or they'll make a little bit. I want to be nice. They'll make a little bit. Or we'll make a little bit. It's a big difference. Yeah, please go. Go ahead. Red dress.
On the 2020 election, is there any more information on the special prosecutor? So many Americans still have questions about the 2020 election. And speaking of rogue judges, would you consider appointing somebody at DOJ maybe to investigate the judges that allowed for the political persecution of you, your family, and your supporters during the Biden administration?
I love you. Who are you?
I'm Kara from Lindell TV.
Well, it's just a very nice question. And it's not a setup. I have no idea who you are, but I appreciate that question. All I can say is we're not here for that. I hope so. I hope they're doing a thing because that election was rigged and stolen, and we can't allow that to happen. A lot of people tell me, sir, you just won the greatest election in the history of our country. You won at numbers that won all 7 swing states, won the popular vote, won everything. Sir, go on with your life. And many people that say that, good people, friends of mine, then you have people that say that same thing, go on with your life, but you have to find out what happened because you can't let that happen again. Look at what this lunatic did. Look at what he did. He opened our borders to people that were murderers, 11,888 to be exact, murderers. And we've captured many of those murderers, and we're bringing them back, or some of them are so dangerous that we don't even want to bring them back. We're afraid they're going to try and come back in. But he allowed people to come into this country, people from mental institutions, insane asylums, that's a mental institution on steroids, people from mental institutions, gang members, drug dealers, people, jails, being emptied out into our country. Venezuela emptied out almost its entire prison population into our country. But I don't want to blame them. Many countries have done that. The Congo, we have a great press conference coming up later, and it's the Congo and Rwanda. They were fighting for years, and it was machetes, it was vicious, it was as vicious, people's heads being chopped off. And I have a man who's very good in that part of the world, very smart, and put them together. And we're signing a peace treaty today. First time in many years they're going to have peace. And it's a big deal. You know, we talk about Russia, and we're working that one. President Putin called up and he said, I'd love to help you with Iran. I said, do me a favor. I'll handle Iran. Help me with Russia. We got to get that one settled. And I think something's going to happen there. But we did some great work. India and Pakistan. That was going to be maybe nuclear. We did that. We did a lot of work. I don't know if there's ever been a president that's done much more. Serbia, Kosovo was going to go at it. Going to be a big war. I said, you go at it. There's no trade with the United States. They said, well, maybe we won't go at it. That's what happened with India and Pakistan. I was negotiating with both of them, and I said to Scott, I said to Howard, cancel all deals with India and Pakistan. They're not trading with us because they're in a war. They called back, what do we do? I said, look, you want to have trade with the United States, it's great. But you want to go and start using nuclear weapons on each other? We're not going to allow that. And they both agreed. Both have great leaders. They both agreed not to do it. So we did a lot, but I appreciate that question.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr.
Orange.
President. Thank you, Mr. President. I was just speaking with Senator Ron Johnson on the One Big Beautiful Bill, and he says he really wants to get to yes for you and get this accomplished.
He does. He's a good man.
But he also said that he needs more time, and he is not certain that the July 4th deadline is possible.
Well, then he's not such a good man.
Because there's too much work to do.
He's a good man. Ron
How
Johnson's
important-
doing a good job. He's very committed. Every Republican senator is committed. And, you know, you could have a couple of grandstanders, in all fairness. You could have somebody else. And it's very dangerous because our country would go from being the most successful country in the world to who knows what happens with a 68%. Think of it, 68% tax increase. That was given by the Democrats because they like high taxes. I don't know what happened. You know, all my life, I'd grow up and I'd watch politicians talking. I'd say, oh, that's fun. And they were always saying, we will cut your taxes. We will cut your tax. I never heard it. They say, we will raise your taxes. And they elect people like this guy in New York that maybe has a chance. I find it hard to believe, but he maybe has a chance. They want to raise your taxes. So they want to see a 68% tax increase. That's more money than anybody could afford. You'd go into a depression if that ever happened. So I think there's a lot of pressure to get that approved.
How important is the July 4th deadline to you? If the
It's important. It's not
deadline's
the end
till
all.
August?
It can go longer, but we'd like to get it done by that time, if possible. And look, we have a lot of very committed people, and they feel very strongly about a subjects that you're not even thinking about that are important to Republicans. The problem we have is that it's a great bill. It's a popular bill, but we'll get no Democrats only because they don't want to vote for Trump. If that bill was their bill, oh, they would be so happy. It's so great for our military. It's great for everything. And they would normally vote, but because their hatred of Trump, they have Trump derangement syndrome at levels never seen before. And instead of voting for a tax cut, they're voting for a tax increase of 68%. They're voting to destroy Social Security, destroy Medicare, and destroy Medicaid. And we're voting to make them perfect and to make them better, make them stronger and better. They're going to destroy Medicaid and they're going to destroy Medicare, and Social Security will follow. If you vote for the Democrats, you're dead on those three things.
Thank you, Mr. President. On a related subject, many Democrats have said that they are not going to support crypto bills in Congress only because of you and your family's personal crypto ventures. And these votes are in some cases needed to pass. Are you open to the idea of pulling away from your personal crypto ventures just for the next few years if that helps get these crypto bills passed in the next few months?
Well, it's a very funny thing, crypto. So I became a fan of crypto, and to me it's an industry. I view it as an industry, and I'm president. And if we didn't have it, China would, or somebody else would, but most likely China. China would love to. And we've dominated that industry. It's a big industry, by the way. In fact, when the stock market went down recently, crypto and Bitcoin and all of that went down much less than anybody else as a group. And we've created a very powerful industry, and that's much more important than anything that we invest in. We invest in it, but really that was an industry that wasn't doing particularly well. I got involved with it a couple of years ago, and before the second term. I got involved before I decided to run. I only decided to run because I saw what was happening, and Biden was incompetent, and the administration was crooked and incompetent. And I was in Bitcoin then, not knowing if I was going to do it a third time. So it's become amazing. I mean, it's the jobs that it produces. And I notice more and more you pay in Bitcoin. I mean, people are saying it takes a lot of pressure off the dollar. And it's a great thing for our country. So I don't care about investing. You know, I have I have kids and they invest in different things. They do believe in it. But I'm president, and what I did do there is build an industry that's very important. And you know, if we didn't have it, China would. Okay.
Sir, Mr. President.
Go ahead. With the glasses, gentlemen. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, are you going to cut funds in the sanctuary states, like for instance California, that keep supporting illegal immigration, and then these people work under
Yeah, we're
the
giving them a
table?
hard time.
And also, in a foreign policy
I
question.
mean, they don't have a governor in California. They have a man that wants to give away everything to people that nobody's seen before. If we didn't go into Los Angeles with the military, which did a fantastic job, but if we didn't go into Los Angeles bringing in the National Guard, I would have brought the military if it was necessary, because you have to. We have the right to. That was another thing upheld by the Supreme Court. But if we didn't go in with the National Guard and be strong and tough, you wouldn't maybe have Los Angeles. It would be like the rest of California, the rest of Los Angeles. They lost 25,000 houses in a fire. They should have lost none. You know, I sent the water down. I had to break into their water supply because they just refused to do it. They're crazy. There's something wrong with them. They have plenty of water. They don't have droughts or anything. They have plenty. We let it come down from the Pacific Northwest. They routed all the water out into the Pacific Ocean for environmental reasons, okay? And now you have 25,000 houses, none of which would have burned down if you had the water. They didn't have water. They didn't have water for the fire pumps. They didn't have water in the sprinkler systems that people put in. So the answer is we're going to work with governors. We're going to work with radical left Democrats and Democrats, and we're going to make it good for everybody. We'll have to stop the crime in those, or in the case of the cities, I think I can say just about all cities with heavy crime are run by Democrats. Go ahead.
11 lies.
Yeah, with the glasses.
I'm with you, Ron.
Go ahead, yes.
International.
Yeah, no, the man behind you, yeah, please.
President Trump, Anthony Mashak from Anthony, Lebanon. I want to ask you regarding the threats posed by Iran's allies and proxies operating in the U.S. They were threatening your life. So what do you say about that? And regarding the Lebanon, because Hezbollah is as well part of Iran's allies, is there any time frame in Lebanon regarding disarming Hezbollah in Lebanon?
Yeah, Lebanon is a great place with brilliant people. You know, it was known for the professors and doctors and had an incredible history. And hopefully we can bring it back again. I just appointed a friend of mine who's Lebanese, and I didn't know he was Lebanese. I've known him for 20 years, very, very successful man. And I just appointed him. And I said, why would you want that? He said, because I was born there, I was raised there, I love it. I love it so much. I said, you know, it's very dangerous going to Lebanon as ambassador. And he said, that's what they say, but I don't care about danger. I mean, this is a guy that is just a very big business guy. He wants to give up his whole life to go to Lebanon because he believes in it so much. We're with Lebanon all the way. We'll try and straighten it out.
Your life as well. So what actions?
Threaten my life? Yeah, they have threatened. I get that throbbing feeling every once in a while. Get that throbbing feeling, but you know what? That's okay. This is a dangerous business. What I do is a dangerous business. You know, I tell the story of the car companies and different people in different professions you have. Race car drivers, as an example. 1/10 of 1% die. Bull riders, 1/10 of 1%. That's not a lot, but it's people die. When you're president, it's about 5%. If somebody would have told me that, maybe I wouldn't have run. Okay? This is a very dangerous profession. Yeah, please. By the way, so many questions. Should we keep this going, Pam? This is the opposite of Biden. Biden would take a half a question and he'd leave without answering it. Go ahead.
On Iran.
You tell me when it gets boring. Okay.
If Iran
Are you from Iran?
No, I'm not from Iran. I'm from the UK. But if the intelligence reports conclude that Iran can enrich uranium to a level that concerns you, would you consider bombing the country again?
Without question, absolutely.
And have you had any conversations?
Turned out to be unbelievable. But, you know, our incredible flyers and I call them the shots. These guys are unbelievable. Think from 52,000 feet, they hit the equivalent of a refrigerator door. They actually hit it right in the center, so it's much smaller than that. And just bomb after bomb going deeper, deeper, blowing up. Incredible, incredible thing. I don't know if you heard the general. He was very impressive. Raisin Kane. You know, he's the one that beat ISIS for me. And he did it in a matter of weeks. And I was told it was going to take 4 or 5 years. And when I got this job, I always said, if I get this job, I'm going to put that guy as the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And Dan Kane, and he, when I heard his name was Raisin, his nickname is Raisin Kane. I said, you got to be kidding. So I liked him right from the beginning. But he knocked out ISIS in a time that nobody ever thought possible. And when this attack was completed and so successful, I said, now I know how you knocked out ISIS so quickly. But we have the best people, we have the best equipment in the world. You know, I rebuilt the military during my 4 years, during my other term. We have the best equipment in the world. The problem is we gave away, you know, a lot of it, but small relatively speaking. We gave a lot of it away to Afghanistan. Shouldn't have happened. That just shows how incompetent they were. They gave all that equipment away, billions and billions of dollars worth. Shouldn't have happened, but that was small compared to what we have. Now we have a great military with great people. Okay. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, congratulations. A couple of very different questions. One is Rwanda, 1994. As you grew up in New York, we all knew how horrific those attacks were. Congratulations on that treaty. There are talks that perhaps...
That's going to take place today at 3 o'clock in the Oval Office. We're going to have a signing with Rwanda and the Congo.
I have a follow-up.
So I'm a little out of my league in that one because I didn't know too much about it. I knew one thing. They were going at it for many years and with machetes. It is one of the worst wars that anyone's ever seen. And I just happened to have somebody that was able to get it settled. I mean, just a brilliant person who is very comfortable in that part of the world. It's a very dangerous part of the world. I said, are you uncomfortable there? People are being killed. School children are being raided and killed. And I don't even want to say how, but as viciously as I've ever heard. Are you uncomfortable? No, that's the part of the world that I know. Very comfortable. Was able to get them together and sell it. And not only that, we're getting for the United States a lot of the mineral rights from the Congo as part of it. They're so honored to be here. They never thought they'd be coming to, look, this is a very tough part of the world. They never thought, they were just telling me, they never thought they'd ever be coming to the White House, and they're so honored. And so we're going to give them a great big reception, but that's after many years of fighting. It's a great thing. That's at 3 o'clock, I believe.
Sir, are you concerned at all about secret nuclear sites in Iran? You talked about maybe just
secret nuclear sites?
Yes, that there might be some.
Not really. Can I tell you? They're exhausted. And Israel's exhausted too. And I dealt with both of them. And they both wanted it settled, both of them. And we did a great job, but they're exhausted. The last thing they're thinking about right now is nuclear. You know what they're thinking of? They're thinking about tomorrow, trying to live. It's such a mess. It's such a mess. The place was bombed to hell. And no, I'm not worried about it at all. And I'm putting out a little statement. I'm going to respond to the Ayatollah's statement yesterday that we won the war. Oh, God, we won the war. And I said, look, you're a man of great faith, a man who's highly respected in this country. You have to tell the truth. You got beat to hell. And Israel was beat up too. They were both beat up. And it was a great time to end it. It was quick. They got the hate out. There was a lot of hate, a lot of hate. It would be great if they didn't have that hate. But the last thing they're thinking about is nuclear weapons right now. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Iris Tao with NTD Research Media with the Epoch Times. Thank you so much for doing this. It's very refreshing for all of us here,
It's a good group.
in this room.
It's refreshing.
Very refreshing. Yes, we haven't
Probably.
had this in for the past
I understand what you mean.
So thank you so much for coming out here.
Other
to
than
talk to us.
Caroline's done a great job.
Yes, sure.
You're referring to the past administration,
Yes,
not to
yes.
Caroline, right?
Yes. Back to the ruling today, if you don't mind. So you have always talked about winning for the American people.
Right.
How do you think today's ruling will enable you to further deliver for American families and workers across the country, not only when it comes to immigration, but also when it comes to trade, energy? What actions are you most eager to move forward
Well, I think
now?
taking power away from these absolutely crazy radical left judges is a tremendous, this is such a big day. This is such a big day. It's like, it's sort of sad because we're doing the signing at 3 o'clock, and this may very well dominate the signing of a big war that was going on and really affecting the continent of, think of it, the entire continent of Africa was being affected. And we're settling that war today, and this will probably be a headline. But this is a very big moment, and it gives power back to people that should have it, including Congress, including the presidency. And it only takes bad power away from judges. It really doesn't take power. It takes bad power, sick power, and unfair power. And it's really going to be, this is a very monumental decision. Yeah, please.
Yeah, Mr. President, thank you very much. On July 9th, is that July 9th date set for tariffs to snap
No.
back? Or could there be a...
We can do whatever we want. We could extend it. We could make it shorter. I'd like to make it shorter. I'd like to just send letters out to everybody. Congratulations, you're paying 25%. He doesn't want, he's a much nicer person than I am. Go ahead, do you finish it up?
Who are you considering for the Federal Reserve then? And are you speeding up that process? I see Secretary...
Oh, he's terrible. He's terrible. I mean, I have a list of things. We're like 38 on the list. We pay, Cameroon and different places are paying the same as us. Because, you have somebody sets their rate at 4% or 4.5%. It's hard to go out and say we should be paying 1% when you have your so-called experts doing that. And the sad part is, as per the question that you asked about tariffs, we've had the tariffs and we have less inflation than we had before. What we have is a hell of a lot more money, a hell of a lot more income, and we shouldn't be paying a rate like that. In other words, when we pay a rate, I'll tell you, each point is the equivalent of $300 billion. So if we had it down 3 points, because I think we should be at 1, you have Switzerland is at 0.25, in other words, 25% of 1%. And they're the number 1 right now, but we should be the number 1. And soon you're going to have, I think, you're going to have where the people will pay will pay, like we had a few years ago, where you put up money, you loan money, and I mean, you actually, instead of paying, you get paid. I love that. I don't know if it's any good, but I love it, where you put up money and you get paid. But we should be in a category, so we should be at the top of the list, not toward the bottom of the list. But we have a man who's not a smart man, and he probably has Trump derangement syndrome. And he's just not a smart person. What he's doing, though, he's hurting us for years to come. Because if we borrow money at 2 points higher than we should be paying, that's $600 billion. Wouldn't you say those numbers are about right, Scott? So it's 2 points would be about 600, actually more than that, but about $600 billion, all because the guy doesn't want to lower the rates. He is doing the service, a very disservice, and then he goes up and talks about, I'd like to see costs come down. He gets up and he does his little thing for 5 minutes, and he goes out and he goes back to the beach. He goes, I'd like to see costs come down. Well, he could lower the interest cost by $900 billion a year. All he has to do is lower rates. And everybody's saying, I was watching some of the business shows today, and they're saying, Trump's right. He should really be cutting. The country's doing well. We have no inflation. Now, despite him, we're doing great. But if we got the rates down, we would be a rocket ship. So I think that'll be it. And I just want to thank everybody. This is a really big day. We've had a big week. We've had a big week. We've had a lot of victories this week. NATO was a tremendous victory. The war was a tremendous. Look, we were talking about this for 30 years, about Iran being nuclear. And all I said is it will not be nuclear, and it's not going to be nuclear. And I want to give credit to a lot of people, and most importantly to our great military. Boy, they put out that fire. Once that happened, once those bombs got dropped, that war was over. That war was over. But I just want to compliment them. Incredible. The general and all of his generals. Pete Hegseth was great. They all. And now I want to compliment Pam. A lot of genius went into this. People If you don't say it exactly right, if the Supreme Court doesn't get it because it's incorrectly spoken about, and that happens. A lot of cases are lost because they don't say the right words. But I want to correct. She's going to go down as a great attorney general. I may change my mind about that. I don't know. Maybe someday I'll have call and say I was only kidding. She's going to go down as a great attorney general. This was a tremendous win, and we've had tremendous wins, but this was a tremendous win today. So I just want to congratulate you and Todd and your whole staff. Very brilliant people, and we can't forget John Sauer.
That's right.
Who is with. There's a medical emergency within his family, so he's taking care of that, and we said absolutely. So I just want to thank everybody very much. Thank you.
Jeff Bezos on his wedding weekend. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir.
American flag on the porch, and everybody respect the cops. Everybody showed up, and that's the country President Trump wants to come back, and he's working hard at it. And look, the hits on President Trump come. He asked me the other day how many death threats you got, and I told him, he said, "I got you beat." Let me tell you something about President Trump. I don't need to tell you this. I've spent many, many hours with this man, either on Air Force One, in the Oval Office, or at Mar-a-Lago, whatever. Not only now, but the 4 years where Biden was president, I was with him many, many times. And I was certainly with him in his first Trump 45. I respect this man as much as I do my own father. This man loves this country. And it makes me sick when I see, he's a racist. It's just incredible. He loves his country. He loves people. He simply wants to make this country great again. He wants to make this country safe again. And that's what he comes to work. When I get in the White House, he's already there. When I leave, he's still there. The man works amazing hours. He loves this country, and I respect him so much. Is he perfect? No. You want the president to be perfect? You better wait for the second coming of Jesus. I never met a perfect man in my life. But he's the greatest president of my lifetime. I've worked for 6 of them. No one did it better than he did. Matter of fact, no one even came close to his success on the border. Unprecedented success. Look, my clock's up. I got to run. I was asked yesterday, I was at the White House, says, are you growing a beard? I says, no. I'm too busy to shave. So, look, I appreciate, I always thought my speech right. If I offend anybody today, I don't give a shit. But I knew coming to this audience, I wouldn't offend anybody. I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate the stance you take. I appreciate your love of this country. Thank you. So let me end with this. I appreciate it. I should walk off the stage right now, right? Yeah. Tom Homan isn't going anywhere. For all the haters out there and to the media who want to write hit piece on me, say what you want. I don't care. No